Hello, this is Sarah Stoy, and today we will be talking about volume of prisms. So at the end of the lesson, you'll be able to know what volume means, its units of measurement, and how is it being calculated. So are you guys ready? If you remember in some point of your life, you were asked to measure the distance or length of an object. And that's one of the examples of a one-dimensional figure because it has only one dimension, which is the height or the width. And then we decided to add one more dimension, and that one-dimensional figure became two-dimensional figure. And that's how you learn on how to find areas of shapes such as triangle, rectangle, square, and so on and so forth. And what if we add more one dimension to it? What would happen to our two-dimensional figure? Yes, it now becomes a three-dimensional figure. Or sometimes it's called solid figures, okay? And now today we will be talking about the volume and its definition. So, what do you think is the definition of a volume? So, let's take a look on this illustration. The volume of a 3D figure refers to the number of cubic units needed to fill the figure. Or put more simply, how much will fit in here? The answer to that question is the volume. So, we will be talking about on how to calculate the volume of a prism. So, before we tackle to that, let's define what is a prism first. Prisms have two bases that are congruent and parallel. When we say congruent, it means it has the same measurement or equals. And if you mean parallel, it means that the lines on a plane that never met, always on the same distance apart and never touching. How many bases does a rectangle have? If you notice in a rectangle, there's more than two bases that are parallel and congruent to each other. Since it is the reason why you can choose any sides or face of a rectangular prism to be your base. In other words, with a rectangular prism, any face can be the base and the volume can be computed by calculating the area of the base times the height. Or we can calculate the volume as length times width times height. You can also select any face of a rectangular prism as the base. How do you know what shape is in the base? But first, let's talk about what a base is. And how do we find it? So, bases are two identical shapes facing each other. So, let's take a look in these figures below. On the first one, we can see that all the sides are in rectangle. So, I'm going to highlight some of the bases. Hence, in this one, the bases are in a rectangular shape. Therefore, we can say that this is a rectangular prism. Try to take a look on the second one. What do you think its name? Okay, so let's highlight these two bases. Since the bases are in triangular shape, therefore we can say that this prism is what we call a triangular prism. Therefore, we can say that the name of a prism is in the name of the base. Okay, what is the volume formula of a rectangular prism? The volume formula for a rectangular prism is base times the height, or in some textbook, the formula is length times width times the height, and they all mean the same. So, the B stands for the area of the base shape, and if you remember, in order to find the area of a rectangle, you have to multiply its base and the height. So, I'm going to highlight the base first. Alright, we have now the base and the height. And secondly, we will highlight the height or h in the volume formula. So if you notice, the h here means the line that connects the two bases altogether, or simply the height of the prism. Alright? Okay, let's try to solve this problem. So, what are the steps in solving the volume of a rectangular prism? Again, always start the problem with an equation, which is volume is equals to base times the height. The first step is for you to write the name of the 3D shape and make a T-chart. And I hope you got this one right. And this is an example of a rectangular prism. And then let's draw a T-chart. And second step is to find the parts. So I'm going to highlight the area of the base and the height. Again, the height is the line that connects the two bases all together. Alright, so starting in the T chart, let's solve for the area of the base first. Again, the area is equals to base times the height. In the figure, we know that the base is 6 and the height is 4. So 6 times 4 is 24 inches squared. That 24 inches squared is our B. And now, let's solve for the rest of the problem. Again, our final formula or the formula that we're going to use here is volume is equals to B times the height. So let's carry over the number obtained from our B, which is 24 inches squared, and plug it in the formula. So we have 24 inches squared times the height of 3 inches. So 24 inches squared times 3 is equals to 72 inches cubed. That 72 inches cubed is the volume of this rectangular prism here. Alright, let's try this triangular prism here. How do we solve for the volume of a rectangular prism? Again, always start the problem with an equation or formula. And the formula to find the volume of a prism is simply the capital B times the height. Okay? The first step is to write the name of the 3D shape and make a T-chart. Okay? I hope you already knew that this one here is a triangular prism. Now let's proceed in making a T-chart. Second step is to find the parts, such as area of the base. I'm going to highlight those bases. As you can see, these bases are in triangular shape. And secondly, the height. Again, the height is the line that connects the two bases all together, which is 8 centimeter in this figure. Okay, now we can proceed with the T-chart. Again, our first step here is to find the area of the base. And since this is a triangle, the area or the formula to find its area is 1 half its base times the height. So let's plug in the values. So 1 half times, okay, so the base for this triangle is 6 and its height is 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. So 1 half times 24 divided by 2. And then 24 divided by 2 is 12 centimeters squared. And that is our base. And now let's proceed to the right side, which is volume is equals to base times the height or area of the base times its height. We already know that the area of the base is 12 centimeters squared and its height is 8 centimeters. So 12 times 8 gives you 96 centimeter cube. That 96 centimeter cube again is the volume of this triangular prism. So let's talk about partial volume. Partial, as its name implies, we will be calculating a portion of the volume instead of a whole. So what I'm going to use the previous slides with the same prisms and its dimensions to calculate the volume. And the formula to find the partial volume is volume times the fractional part or its equivalent decimal or percentage. In this example, the tank is 3/4 full of water. What portion of the tank is filled with water? So in our first step, we already calculated the volume, which is 72 inches cubed. And for the second step, let's carry over the volume and plug it in the formula for the partial volume. So 72 inches cubed times 3/4. 72 inches cubed times 3/4 can also be written as 72 over 1 times 3 over 4. Now please pause the video and try to see if you can solve this equation. Okay, so 72 times 3 is 216 and 1 times 4 is 4. And 216 divided by 4 is 54 inches cubed. There is also another way on how to do step number 2. In, in step number 2, instead of multiplying the volume with a fraction, you can convert the fraction into a decimal instead. So, we all know that the equivalent decimal for 3 over 4 is 0.75. So, let's see. Partial volume is equals to 72 inches cubed times 0.75. And that should still give us the same answer, which is 54 inches cubed. Let's try solving this partial volume of our triangular prism. So I'm going to use the same triangular prism in our previous slide with the same dimensions. So let's take a look on this problem. Blippi ate 2/5 portion of the Toblerone candy. What volume of the Toblerone candy he didn't eat? That means to say that we're looking for the difference between a whole number and 2/5. So a whole number in this case can be also be written as 5 over 5. 5 over 5 minus 2/5 is 3/5. And that's the fraction we are going to use to multiply it to the volume. Of course, on our first step is to find the volume first, which we already did in the previous slide. And that volume is 96 centimeter cube. Now let's proceed to step 2. Volume of 96 centimeter cube times 3/5 can also be written as 96 over 1 times 3/5. Pause the video and try to solve this one. Okay, 96 times 3 is 288 and 1 times 5 is 5. 288 divided by 5 gives you a volume of 57.6 centimeter cube. Thanks for watching and hopefully you learned something from the tutorial today. Bye bye.